Good morning, good morning, good morning. Sorry I'm a little late. Caught between trying to wake my son up and trying to get this going today. I'm using my camera instead of just my computer because I didn't like the way how fuzzy it looks. So neither here nor there. Hey everyone, I'm Tashina. And yeah, I don't know where to look because my camera and my computer, whatever, all the setup, all the things. I'm here, I'm ready, I'm here for you. So, for those who don't know me, I'm Tashina, and whether you're joining me right live right now or you're catching this replay later, I am so glad that you're here for live 2 of our career navigation series. If you were here yesterday, you already understand the shift that we're taking from being just a good worker to a navigator. And if this is your first time joining, you're jumping in at exactly the right moment because today we're going to get a little bit more tactical. We're going to be talking about something that literally determines who gets promoted, who survives layoffs, who gets tapped for opportunities. But I think it's something that nobody really teaches, which is how to position yourself before decisions happen, not just after. And so you won't be surprised when they come to you, okay? And not after you're surprised. We really want you to be equipped. I want you to be equipped with what you need, okay? So, what I keep seeing with a lot of the introverted women of color that I work with is that you are working hard and you're getting good reviews. People say that they appreciate you, and then someone else gets a promotion that you thought that you were going to get, or someone gets laid off who you thought would be safe. Okay, I know when this happened to me, people were like, "What? What happened?" Right? But that's a whole other story. There was some deliberate decisions that I made at that point. But opportunities seem to go to people that are less qualified. And so it kind of makes you like, what is going on here? And what happens is that you're sitting there and you're thinking, how did I not see that coming? Or how did they not think about me for that role? Because you've been doing great work. And you're like, where was the advocate? Where was the person who should have had my back? Where were they at in this moment? Sorry, y'all. I am getting a message because y'all, I ain't gonna be lie. I forgot to start on Instagram. So people are like, where you at? Where you at? Where you at? But I hope y'all are with me still. Okay. I'm getting it together. I'm getting it together. Um, I don't think I can add. Yeah, I can. All right. All right. So, um, where did I leave off? Where did I leave off? Okay. So you have folks who are like, okay. So we're talking about how to be ready and to be prepared for when decisions are happening and to kind of position yourself so that you are the person that they're thinking about. There are a lot of brilliant, amazing introverted women of color that I work with who are just like, why didn't they pick me? I'm working hard. I'm doing all the things that I need to do. Why aren't they picking me? Why isn't the person who was supposed to advocate me? Why aren't they saying something? And one of the things that I'm learning at this time and from working with a lot of people and just my own experience is that the people who advance aren't necessarily smarter. They're not necessarily the most talented. They just understand that careers are made in relationships, in conversations, and they happen before any official announcement. And so, for the next 30 minutes or so, I'm going to kind of pull back the curtain. And I'm going to share exactly how those conversations work. I'm going to teach you how to read the signals that decisions are coming and also show you the specific strategies that you can use to position yourself so that when opportunities come or when cuts happen, you are already on the right side of those conversations. Okay. And this is the exact system that I teach to different people that I work with because y'all, I've been through two layoffs. The first one was like, "Ooh, what the heck happened?" The second one was more like, "Oh, okay, that happened," and I made a decision, and not to stay in the organization. And so, we all have our reasons. We have things that we want to do, but for those who are like, "I don't want to be caught off guard," this is going to help you in that, being able to position yourself in that way. Okay. So let me just paint a picture for you of what's really happening in organizations right now. So the conversations that you're not seeing that determine your career trajectory are the ones that I want to talk about. So I want you to imagine that it's today, it's the afternoon, it's 3 o'clock already, and your CEO, your CFO, and three VPs are sitting in a conference room and they're talking about budget and they're talking about what that's going to look like. And they have budget sheets, they have org charts, all of these things spread across the table. And they're not just looking at the numbers. They're not just trying to figure out like what are the numbers, where are we at right now? They're actually having conversations about people. And they're saying things like, okay, sorry, y'all. They're saying things like, okay, so if we need to reduce our headcount by 12 next quarter, who are the people that we actually cannot lose? Okay. I've literally seen this conversation happen. Or they're thinking, we got three director level openings and they're coming up with our expansion. Who are the people that's actually ready to step up? Who are the people that's actually ready to lead and take the initiative? Or y'all know AI is alive and well these days. And so people are thinking and they're wondering, or these leaders, they're like, okay, AI is going to change how we operate. Who are we going to trust to actually lead that initiative? Who are we going to trust that's actually going to be able to lead people through that type of transformation? Okay. And there's this one person that keeps coming up in these conversations. And it's because she seems to understand the strategic picture. She understands what's going on, and they're asking like, okay, what's her trajectory? What do we think about her? The thing that most people don't understand is that decisions about your career aren't made when the job gets posted or when performance reviews happen. They are happening in conversations just like this. And it's usually months earlier when they're even thinking about these things. So when you find out that somebody got promoted or you're shocked because you're like, when was that even posted? Y'all all have had that moment, right? You it wasn't posted and you're just like, what the hell is going on here, right? These decisions were made in a room that you were not in. It was based on the performance that the person had previously done, and they had already positioned themselves in such a way that made them stand out. Okay. So when layoffs are happening and you're genuinely surprised about who got the job versus who didn't or who was protected, those decisions were based on who decision makers could just quickly identify as essential versus the people that were expendable. And so the people who are consistently ending up on the right side of these conversations aren't just doing good work. They are strategically being able to position themselves in a way that the decision makers have them at the top of their mind because they're like, oh yeah, I remember this Tashina. Oh, I remember this person. Oh, I remember this person, right? And they are the ones that's getting these positions. So if you think about your workplace right now, there are probably conversations that are happening about budget, about reorgs, about new initiatives, about who's ready for what. And the question that I have for you are you positioned to actually benefit from those conversations? Or are you hoping that someone remembers to include you after the decision has already been made? Where are you on that? So, most people are completely blind to what the organizational signals are, and they get caught off guard by every major change. Okay, every reorg, every round of promotions or cuts, they are surprised. They're like, "How did that happen?" Right? This is the people that are got their heads down and they're doing great work, and they just didn't see it, right? But if you are a navigator of your career, if you were on yesterday, we talked about your career needs what? A navigator. You need to be doing what in your career? Navigating. Like we talked about that all day yesterday or in the live yesterday. But navigators, they're going to see the patterns. They're going to see what the signals are, and then they position themselves accordingly. So let me teach you the exact signal system that I'm using. This is the same thing that has helped clients of mine position themselves to be the obvious choice, to be the person who's like, oh, I'm gonna get in front of this. I've also used this, and you know, this is a secret, but I'm gonna tell y'all, so don't tell nobody else. But I've also taught my kids how to do this in school as well. Okay, these are politics doesn't wait for you. And if you see my Instagram post yesterday, I said this conversation is about navigating the workplace, but at its core, this is about how you navigate politics because a lot of women of color don't like to lean into the politics. But this is, I mean, we have to keep our head on the swivel. We have to know what's going on. And so politics doesn't wait for when you get to a workplace. It begins really young. It's just that when you're really young, hopefully you have parents and teachers and advocates and adults who can advocate on your behalf. But as you're growing, as you're developing at the high school level, even at the middle school level, let me tell y'all, my 12-year-old is one of the smartest people I know. Okay. He knows, he understands because he got me as a mama. But I have taught him how to think about things, how to talk, how to respond, how to do all those things. And this is a system that I am teaching my kids little by little so they understand how to move in the world, especially as little Black kids. Okay. So there's another like why for me that's really super important. Okay. So when you start hearing that leadership uses these specific phrases that I'm going to tell you, your your radar should go up. Your light bulbs, you should be like, oh, you should be ready. Okay. So first is this, it's really like these budget and efficiency languages that you'll hear that'll tell you that something is happening, something is brewing, something is going on underneath the surface. Okay. So the first one is we need to be more strategic about our investments. So we need to be smarter. We need to figure it out. Like we're not being as smart with our investments as we should. Or let's take a hard look at our resource allocation. Let's make sure that the way that we are allocating resources is the right way that we should be doing it. Or we're doing a comprehensive utilization analysis. I know that's a lot of words, but literally, that is something that somebody has told me in one of my one on ones. Like, we're doing this comprehensive utilization analysis. We're about to figure it out. We're going to run the numbers and the data. Or this is one that I heard during the time that I was actually being laid off, which is leadership wants to understand what you do or what's your true capacity. They really want to understand what you're giving and what's good for you, right? Or how impactful, how good are you for the organization? Or we need to identify our core competencies. Y'all, in my last job, I literally helped to produce a set of core competencies for my team. And these were signals. These were signals. These were signals. And at the time, I didn't know. Like I wasn't really paying attention to it that much because, we all think our 9 to 5 is just safe. But it's something that was happening at that time. Okay. So, someone in your organization is going to be evaluating who's essential and who might be redundant. And they're literally looking for an ROI on human capital, not just budget line items. And so um, you have to make sure that people understand your specific business impact with metrics, and not just that you work hard or that you support the team. Like they really want to know that. A positioning message that you can say is like, hi, whatever your skip level is, I wanted to update you on our Q3 results. The process improvements I implemented reduced processing time by 30% and saved us approximately 50K in contractor costs. Happy to share more details on how we can scale this. That's a lot of words, but if you notice, yesterday we talked about like what the elements that you need to put in your statements. You always want to lead with what you did and the metrics, because metrics, data, I mean, numbers don't lie, right? I was telling my husband and my 16-year-old, he'll be 16 on Thursday. Do do do. Um, I'm kind of sad about it, just so y'all know. I'm kind of sad. He isn't my youngest, but I'm just like, dang, he's growing up. But I was telling them like my favorite subject, y'all wouldn't believe, was math. When I was in school, math was my favorite subject. Why? Because there's always one answer. It's not subjective. Like there's always like numbers don't lie. Like this is what it is. This is the fact. This is the data, which is interesting in our world today, how we see government and things like that, and we see people try to manipulate the numbers. You can't manipulate a number, y'all. 1 + 1 always gonna equal 2. You can't say 1 + 1 equals 2.5. Okay, you cannot manipulate it. So that's me going on a tangent, but I just wanted to tell you, like, you always want to include the number, the metric, the data in your positioning statement, because it really shows concrete details, and then you want to share what that impacted, right? It impacted not lose, like what we didn't lose or what we gained from what you did. Okay, now there are other signals that are also happening that you should also know. Okay, so this one is more about leadership and priority signals. So you'll see external hires being brought in at senior levels, especially for companies known for specific strengths. So if you start seeing more like AI data, kind of like those type of things come into your organization and being brought in externally, there's something happening, y'all. So pay attention. Or there's a sudden focus on metrics or initiatives that weren't priorities before. So now we're focused on this thing. We're like, whoa, we was talking about this yesterday. Now, okay. Or certain projects get fast tracked while others get mysteriously delayed. Or leadership starts asking about digital transformation or operational excellence or cultural evolution. Y'all, this is so close to home. But this is how you know something is brewing, something is changing. There's something that is going on that is wanting to happen, or that is going to happen. Or there's some new committees or some task force that's being developed or formed. Okay, so these are kind of leadership change, strategic shifts. Okay, so basically here is like priorities are shifting significantly, and they're identifying who can help them execute on these new strategies versus who might resist the change or lack the skills for the new direction. And so you want to position yourself as someone who facilitates change and helps others navigate those transitions, not someone who is afraid of new direction. So if you're afraid of change and you're afraid of jumping in and doing something new, you should start developing that skill. You should start raising your risk tolerance level and your ability to jump in and be ready to shift directions. Okay, here agile is important. Okay, it is important. The third signal is around relationships and access. So you'll start to see there's more closed door meetings between leadership levels, or your manager is asking you to document processes or prepare knowledge transfer material. So they really want you to, we need all the SOPs, we need all the things that's really going to show like how do we actually do this, because they want to make sure if they let you go, there's some institutional knowledge that has been documented so that they can continue continue the processes and business as usual. um Another thing that happens is that cross-functional meetings start happening that don't include your usual stakeholders. And so like this person used to be like the big person, but now they're not involved in those conversations anymore. Okay. Something is going on in behind my computer. Okay. And then you'll see that leadership is spending unexpected amount of face time with people who don't usually get access. So there's a lot of excuse me, y'all. This is what happens real time. We were sitting in the meeting. This was what would be happening real time. But anyway, leadership is spending an unexpected amount of face time with different people that usually they didn't talk to, or there's changes in who gets invited to strategic planning meetings or vision conversations. And so I've seen this happen with leaders where they're like, yeah, I used to be able to go to that, but then they kicked us all out. Yeah. If anybody is out here who knows me and knows my journey, y'all know this was real. This was real. Okay. When you start getting not invited to different conversations. So here, the decision conversations are accelerating, and they're starting to build these networks of who are going to be the people that are going to influence the change, and they're being activated. And so what happens is that information and relationship channels are shifting. And so who's pairing together, who's getting together, and who's privy to information is also changing and shifting. Okay. So here's what I want you to do. Whether you're watching on replay or you're watching live right now, I want you to think about your workplace over the last 60 days. And I want you to answer these questions for yourself. What language patterns have you been hearing from leadership? Like, what are they saying? Like, we need to do operational excellence, or we need to document your knowledge and what you're doing, or what kind of things? What relationship or access patterns have you noticed changing? Who gets access? What relationships are forming? And then what projects or priorities seem to be getting more or less attention? I think in every organization, AI is getting attention. So at least you should have that there. And then who seems to be getting more face time with decision makers? If you can identify 2 to 3 signals from these different categories, there's likely a significant change or opportunity cycle starting. And so this is your window for positioning, to strategically position yourself. Okay. So now I'm going to give you the playbook, or the module, or the way through, the secret to position yourself before a decision happens. And this is the same thing that I've used. This is the same thing that I've given to other people, especially if you're the person that's the reliable team player, to get promoted or to get salary increases. This is how you're going to do it. Okay. So I want you to grab something to write with. It could be your phone note, your notes app. It could be your notebook, whatever. And we're going to map your career decision ecosystem. We're going to figure that out. Okay. So I want you to write down these 4 categories and fill in the names. So the first one is direct influence. I want you to write your manager's name. The second one is your manager's manager. The third are 2 people from other departments who have input into your work or into your area. And also 1 person who seems to have this like undercover quiet influence, and they get consulted on decisions. Okay. I want you to write those 4 people down. So your manager, your manager's manager, which is a skip level. I want you to write 2 people from other departments who have input into your work and your area. And then somebody who seems to be consultant on decisions. Y'all, this could even be an administrative assistant. So don't knock the administrative assistants out there. They might be somebody who gets consulted on decisions. Just saying. And I want you to put what they care about the most and how well they understand your value. Sorry. So your manager is, for all of them, you're going to say what they care about the most. Okay. For your manager, you're going to say how well they understand your value. How well do they understand your value? For the skip level, for your manager's manager, when you last had a meaningful conversation with them? Okay. When is the last time you had a meaningful conversation with them? For the other two people from other departments, cross-functional influence, you're just going to name those people because it's good to know who those people are. And then the person who seems to have like a quiet kind of like influence or power and they get consulted on decisions, I just want you to write what's their area of influence. What's their area of influence? Okay. So next to each one, I want you to rate the relationship strength 1 to 5. How well do you actually know each other? Relationship strength, how well do you actually know each other? Value awareness, 1 to 5. How well do they understand your specific contributions and capabilities? How well? And then strategic positioning, how likely are they to think of you for new opportunities? Okay. So, how well do you know each other? 1 through 5, with 5 being I know them very well or they know me very well. Value, how well do they understand your specific contributions and capabilities? With 5, they really know them. And then for positioning, how likely are they to think of you for new opportunities? And 5 being the greatest. That's what I want you to do. Okay. What happens is that most people are going to see that the decision makers in their kind of ecosystem barely understand what they actually do or their value, or your value that they provide, your value that you provide. And it's no fault of yours. This is why we're here, and this is the opportunity for you to be able to position yourself. This is an opportunity, okay? So if you scored low on value awareness or strategic positioning, so the way they see your value or how you're positioned, you need some systematic strategy touch points, not random networking, because people are going to tell you to network, but it can't be random, but it has to be some intentional conversations that are going to position your work strategically in the minds of those folks. Okay. So we have a couple of ways that you could do this. So you can give a strategic project update where you've given a brief update on a specific project or initiative. You're talking about the specific measurable impact that happened. And then, you're going to talk about, because they care about whatever they care about, I thought you might find this relevant. So you're going to let them know that. Like, for instance, like, hi, Tashina, I use my own name. Hi, Tashina, I want to give you a brief update on, um, the school board initiatives. We just were able to raise $50,000. And since I know that you care about the fundraising projects and you care about what we're going to do with that money, I thought that you'll find this relevant. Boom. Okay. So that's an example of that. Okay. The second thing is you could also frame it as, um, what you've been working on and how you want to ask them for their perspective on it. Okay. And so for an example, it could be, hi, I'll use my son name. Hi, Jaden. I've been analyzing our cross department workflow inefficiencies, and I have some ideas that might support the operational excellence initiative. I would love 15 minutes of your time to get your thoughts on this approach. Okay. This is like asking for their consult, asking for their advice, your advice seeking here. And then the third one is like future focus. You're asking about future insights and you want to share that. So it's like, hi, Jaden. I use my son names again. Hi, Jaden. I'm tracking this pattern that's I'm tracking the AI trend or something like that in our work. And I think it might impact the way you do your data analysis. Based on what I'm seeing, this is my recommendation. I'm happy to elaborate if this will be helpful. Okay. So you see how you could be really like strategically touch point on these three things just to make it so that they see that you're thinking broadly, you're thinking globally, you're really thinking about what you can offer to these people. Okay. Now, if you're trying to position yourself for the future, um, the difference between what separates good positioning from career positioning is that you don't just report what you've accomplished, you actually demonstrate how you think about future challenges and opportunities. And so, basic positioning is like, I completed the Q3 financial analysis, right? That's basic, right? But when you're thinking about the future, you're trying to position for the future, you want to say things like, I completed the Q3 financial analysis and I identified some patterns that might help us get ahead of potential Q4 budget challenges. The data suggests that we can optimize our resource allocation in this specific area to improve margins by approximately 8%. I'm happy to present the full analysis if it would be valuable. Y'all see that? Don't I sound smart? Y'all thinking about these things and really trying to think about how to say it correctly. When I work with my clients, like we really go deep. We really go deep, right? Because I'm trying to get y'all, in the right way. Work these politics. It's all good. So when decision makers, sorry, when decision makers hear you future focus and see you positioning yourselves in that way, their brain automatically starts to think, oh, this person thinks strategically they about the business and they're really involved and they're anticipating needs instead of just reacting to them. They can handle some bigger responsibilities. They're like all bought in just based off of what you said, right? Words have power. I want y'all to know words have power. And that's exactly the positioning you want when career opportunities start to come up. So I hear y'all asking me, what about the relationships? So if you want to bridge some relationships, the first thing is you could split this up into like 3 months of like how you're doing this. Also have the 2-2-2 method that I've talked about a lot. But you could do month 1, 2, and 3. So the first month is like establish some very basic communication. So you want to send monthly project updates to skip level and cross-functional leaders, engage in one strategic question or consultation conversation. So, seek advice. And then document your wins in language that connects to the business priorities. You always want to connect to the business. So where are your receipts? Where are you doing that? You can also the second month, you can demonstrate strategic thinking. So what this looks like is share insight about trends, about challenges, about opportunities, any of these things that you're seeing, and volunteer input on strategic initiatives or planning processes. So this is where you want to volunteer, you want to jump in there, you want to see how you can help, and then position yourself as somebody who helps solve organizational challenges so people know that they can reach out to you. The third month is create your positioning for opportunities. So I want you to start expressing a strategic interest in challenges that leadership is discussing. So tell them like, oh, I would love to work on that project. Oh, I would love to do that. I think that's an amazing idea. Or share ideas for improving processes or outcomes in areas they care about so that you position yourself as ready for expanded responsibilities. Okay. So let me give you a real example. So I was working with a gentleman, and yes, I was working with a gentleman. Every once in a while, I get a guy that will come to me and work with me, and so he wanted to position himself for opportunities. And so we were together for 3 months, and we do a lot of positioning and working with politics because you want to position yourself in that way. But we do a lot of other things, mindset and all kinds of other things as well. But this particular thing, talking about positioning themselves because they wanted something greater, which I think is important. I think we go to update the resume, get prepared for interviews. We do those things, but there's something to be said about how we position ourselves. If you think about a chessboard, like how are we actually thinking 5, 6 steps ahead? Y'all, I don't play chess. My husband plays chess. um, so I know that it's a really thoughtful thinking, strategic, analytical game. So I understand that this is a good analogy for this. But if you're somebody who watches Traders, y'all, I just started falling in love with that show. I watched the last season and then I binged the 3 seasons before that because I was like, oh my God, I love this game. And I just might apply to be on Traders. We'll see. I think today or tomorrow is like the final day. So I might just throw my name in the hat because it's one of those shows that I'm just like loving. But there's a lot of strategic positioning that is happening and it's really opening my eye as a small component of what the bigger world and politics looks like. Okay? Just saying. So when I was working with this guy, first we started having him send monthly updates to his skip level about any cross department like analysis work that he was doing, and any like efficiency improvements and cost savings that he identified. And so we just started doing that, like just send these updates. This would be great, right? And then the next thing is that when he heard leadership talking about operational excellence, he shared some insights about process improvements that could support that initiative. And it was based on some patterns he was seeing in the financial data. And so we just made sure that he was able to like position himself in that way. And then it just so happens that they did, like, these were signals that were happening. And so when they mentioned some challenges with coordination between finance and operations, he volunteered to actually design a better like process to integrate both, and then he presented a strategic plan. Okay, so what this resulted in, which was mind blowing for the both of us, is that when they decided to create this new role, his skip level specifically recommended him because they already saw him as somebody who thought strategically about cross functional challenges. And they knew that he can actually execute on these priorities that were coming up. Okay, so he didn't have to wait for a job posting. He positioned himself as the solution to problems that leadership was already thinking about before they even needed to create a new role. Okay, this is the power of just like positioning yourself and getting yourself prepared for these type of things. Okay, now I know what you're thinking because I'm thinking it too, right? You're probably thinking, Tashina, like, that sounds like a lot of networking. And I don't like to network. I don't like to talk to people. I don't like to do those things. And I get it because I'm an introvert too. And I understand that that could be hard. But here's the thing, this isn't networking. This is being very strategic about the relationships that you build and being on purpose. And there is a huge difference with this. Okay. This is why this works if you're an introvert. So, first of all, traditional networking feels fake because you're making all this small talk with strangers and you're trying to work the room and you're trying to, like, I always call it like speed dating. Like, I always think of the speed date. I just have that visual of speed dating. And you're trying to work the room and you're trying to meet everybody and you're asking things from people that you don't even know. And it feels kind of fake, right? But when you're strategically positioning yourself, it feels more authentic because you're going to start having substantive conversations about work that you are passionate about with people who are relevant to your career growth. and you're leading with like, this is my value, this is what I can help with, this is what I can do, instead of just asking for things. Okay. So as an introvert, you do have an advantage. You do have an advantage to positioning, because there are certain skills or certain things that you already do naturally that are working in your favor. The one thing is that you can go very deep over just breath. So going deeper instead of just working the room. Okay. So instead of trying to meet everyone, you are able to focus on building these meaningful relationships with 4 to 5 people who can actually influence your career trajectory. You know how to go deep. You also like to have quality conversations. If you're like me, you like to have quality conversations. So instead of like this surface level small talk, you're actually discussing strategic challenges, you're sharing insights, and you're solving problems. And that's the kind of conversations that introverts actually enjoy. You also, as an introvert, will typically think before speaking, which means that you know how to plan these conversations strategically instead of just winging it. So you're thinking, you're being thoughtful, you're approaching it in a certain way. You're like, okay, this is how I have to approach this conversation with this individual. You're researching, you're understanding what they like or what's important to them, and you're going deep on that. Okay. And listening is your superpower. Listening is your superpower. I talked about on one of my posts on LinkedIn, like, stop saying introversion is a superpower. So I'm not saying that, but I am saying that listening is a superpower, because your natural skills, your natural listening skills, will help you understand what decision makers actually care about so that you can position more effectively. You're listening, you're reading body language, you're like, those 3 levels of listening are really high for most introverts. Okay. So that is your positioning stance as an introvert. Okay. So, one strategic conversation per month. If you need to manage your energy, just do one conversation a month with one person. And then uh, that can help you really like just manage, like, it doesn't feel overwhelming. Okay. So, it's not constant networking. It's just like, choose a person that you can meet up with and you can talk to. Email first approach as well. So many of the touch points can start with an email, which gives you an opportunity to kind of craft your message thoughtfully and position yourself. And then every conversation, just make sure that you have a clear business purpose, so that it feels naturally instead of forced. So you're not thinking about like, I don't know what they're going to say. You actually know what they're going to say, because you're going to start that conversation strategically. And then follow your interests. You don't have to do something that you don't really care about just to make it seem relevant or valid or get their attention. Don't do that. Do look at the things that you're genuinely excited about, because when you're excited about the topic, the conversation is just going to flow so much more naturally. Okay. So here's what we covered today. We talked about how to read organizational signals, that help you know that change is coming. We told you how to map your ecosystem. So I gave you some things to think about, like the manager, the skip level manager, the person who has like this power, influence, and cross functional partners. Really think about what they care about. Really think about what they can be consulting on, what you can offer as future forward kind of like information. Really think about that. And then how to build strategic relationships that position you for opportunities before they are announced. And I gave you a real example of this gentleman that I was working with that actually was able to get a role created for him. Okay. Now, here's what I know from working with hundreds of high achievers over the past several years: understanding what to do and actually implementing it consistently in your real world workplace are 2 completely different challenges. Maybe you are listening to this and you're like, I can see what I should do, but I'm still scared to start these conversations, because what if I say the wrong thing? I don't know if I'm going to say the right thing. Or you're thinking, hold on just a second. Or you're thinking, how do I know if I'm reading these signals correctly? Maybe I'm over exaggerating. Maybe this is all wrong. Maybe I'm just being paranoid. Or what if I reach out to these people and they don't respond to me, or they think I'm being pushy, or they just ghost me? Right? Because you think, oh, people are, they're gonna be super busy. Or this makes sense in theory, but how do I adapt it to my specific workplace culture and personalities? How do I adapt it there? I want you to know that strategic positioning isn't just about having the right frameworks. Okay. So I gave you some frameworks, I gave you some things to work with, but it's also about having confidence to actually execute them. So the communication skills that you need to make them land well. And you also are going to need some ongoing support to actually adjust when things don't go as planned. And that's why I'm doing the Own Your Career in Uncertain Times. And it's going to be a live workshop next week, next Thursday, March 19th at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'm not just going to be talking to you for 90 minutes while you take notes. This is going to be hands-on workshop where you're going to build your actual positioning strategy together. We're going to build it together, and then it's going to be customized to your workplace and your goals and your communication styles. And so you'll in this workshop, what you're going to walk away with is a personalized decision maker ecosystem map. So you're going to build out a map. We're going to talk about relationship building strategies for each person. You're also going to be able to look at your organizational signal reading system. So you're going to be able to, like, what are the signals? What are the things? It will be customized to your industry and your workplace culture. And then we'll do a 90-day like timeline so that you understand exactly what conversations to have and when. Of course, I'll give you some scripts, I'll give you some frameworks, I'll give you some things like that. That's going to actually advance your career and help you, like the gentleman that I worked with. And it will be adapted for introverts as well, because introversion is something that is really close to home for me. And I know I work with the same type of women that are similar to myself, and some men too that are also introverted. And then this is your opportunity to create your strategy, so that you can start generating options instead of waiting for them to appear. Okay. And for people who want ongoing support as they implement these strategies, um, it 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 the reality is that it's going to feel scary. Okay, because you're going to be doing this in the real world. Real life is happening, things with high stakes. And so I'm going to be sharing in this webinar the career lab. The career lab is my 3-month intensive program where we don't just build your positioning strategy, we're going to implement it together. There's going to be weekly one-on-one sessions. There's going to be unlimited Voxer messaging or voice messaging support or email support for when situations come up. And then there's just going to be complete support for whatever comes up as you navigate your career. Um, because when your positioning is just not about tactics, it's also about confidence. It's about communication skills. It's about managing your energy, creating these boundaries, creating like guardrails for yourself, trade-off decisions, things like that. And then it's just really going to help you to I'll be able to help you with some of the mindset work that's important um, in these situations, because there's a lot of belief breaking and building, and things that's going to come up, and you're going to feel a certain type of way, and there's going to just be all these things. And so I'll be talking about that as well in that. So if you want to join, register for the webinar, you could do it at this QR code, depending on where you're at on Instagram. I think it's in a different spot than what's on my screen, or LinkedIn. So just click that. You could also go to the link in my bio. You can also, if you're on Instagram, comment career under one of my posts. I'll send you the link directly to your DM. And you can join and register for this webinar. Okay. And whether you join me or not, I want you to walk away from today with some immediate actions that you can start so that you can position yourself. So I want you to complete your decision making kind of map, which is the 4 to 5 key people. I want you to identify 2 to 3 organizational signals that you've noticed in the last 60 days, and then rate your current positioning strength with each decision maker. Okay. So you can do those today, tomorrow, you can figure that out. Then you can start to rewrite days 3 and 4, rewrite one recent accomplishment using future forward positioning language. And you could go back and watch this to get that information. And then identify one strategic insight or trend you could share with leadership and draft one positioning message using the frameworks from today. Day 5 and 6, you can send one strategic touch point message to someone in your ecosystem. Schedule or request one strategic conversation with a cross functional leader, and then keep your receipts, document your wins in a language that connects to business priorities. And then for the final day, plan your next 30 days of positioning activities. Plan those out. Treat those just like you would treat planning a vacation, planning a wedding, planning a new kid, planning whatever, right? Planning a party. Treat this the same exact way. Plan, plan, plan. Okay. What's your positioning activities that you're going to do? And then identify which upcoming organizational changes or initiatives you want to position yourself for. AI, 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 AI. I think I heard somebody say AI, but just make sure you do that. And then set some calendar reminders for ongoing communication that you're going to do. Now, here's what I want you to remember before we leave is that the conversations that determine your career trajectory are happening right now, whether you're positioned to benefit from them or not. They're already happening. And so the question isn't, how do I get promoted? The question is, how do I make sure that decision makers think of me when those opportunities come up? How do I make sure? The question is also not, how do I survive the next reorg? The question is, how do I position myself as somebody that they cannot afford to lose? Okay. You have so much influence and ownership over your career than you think you do. You just need to stop thinking like someone that you're waiting to be discovered. This isn't like, you know, American Idol or all these things. Like, you're not waiting, right? You need to be somebody who position yourself. You're moving the pieces on the chessboard so that you can be the thought out person. You could be the one they're thinking about when things happen. Okay. So some things, some principles that I want you to remind yourself: position before you need to, not when opportunities are already announced. Lead with strategic value, not just task completion. So what's the value? Not just the to-do list. Build relationships with purpose, not just a networking activity. We're not talking, I do say network. I think you should build relationship and network, right? I always say date the C-suite. We could talk about that at another time. But this is like, be strategic with your relationships and think like a business partner, not just an individual contributor. This is your internal business, and you have to figure out how to lead in that and demonstrate future readiness, not just past performance. Okay. Those are some principles that I want you to walk away with, that I want you to understand, that I want you to guide yourself in these, some mindset things. Okay. So here's what you now understand that most people never have figured out, is that if you want to advance, if you want to be strategic, it's not about working harder or being more talented. It's about actually positioning yourself in the right conversations before they become official decisions. You already have the skills. You already have the experience. You already have the strategic thinking ability. We know you think smart. What you needed was the system for positioning those things, those capabilities, where they can be recognized and rewarded. Okay. So tomorrow, live number 3, how to turn unpaid leadership, those unpaid work items that you're doing, into real career capital. because I know most of you guys are doing leadership work that isn't reflected in your title or compensation. So come to that. And then on Friday, we're going to do our final live on how to just like stay irreplaceable when everything is changing. And then next Thursday is Own Your Career in a Certain Time, which is a longer workshop on Zoom. It will not be streamed on these live platforms. Okay. So remember, you're not asking for favors when you position yourself. You're helping decision makers make better choices by making sure that they have complete information about who you are and your contributions. You're not just waiting on your boss to speak for you, you're actually doing it yourself. So take action on what we covered today. Start with your ecosystem mapping, start with your signal reading. And if you want personalized guidance building this strategy, join me next Thursday in that workshop. All right. I hope this was wonderful for you. Sorry, I went a little longer than I thought. I talked too much. All right. Talk to you soon. Bye.